You're listening to Popcorn and Politics. What's the real deal? Hosted by Audrey Bell Kearney and Derek J. Wilson. Asking the hard-hitting questions you want answers to. From political leaders and political hopefuls from around the world.
Hey, stop that.
Hey.
Every now and again, technology. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Popcorn and Politics. I'm your host, Audrey Bell Kearney, along with my co-host, Derek J. Wilson, and our special guest today, Judge Tracie Cason. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
So before we get on with Tracie, we got some stories, at least one story to talk about, which is funny because Derek never wants me to talk about this person. So go ahead, I'm ready to kick it out.
No, you can talk about him. This is your boy. That's why I said, well, since he back in the news, I can let her talk about him today. So go ahead and talk about your boy.
You know what's funny, right? So I always watch. We all watch politics and all this kind of stuff. And so Herschel Walker is always in the news for not doing something, whether he's not running with the party, running against the party, running against. To me, it's funny. So every time I come on, they go, "Oh my God, please don't talk about him again." But listen, I have to talk about him because he's in the news once again. So Herschel is running against Raphael Warnock, and well, this is gonna be a race, y'all. You got two black men running, one on each side of the spectrum, and right now it looks like Raphael got 50% and Herschel has 45%, and then you got an undecided 5% of the population saying, "Yeah, we like him." So, listen,
it's gonna be a good one.
It's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a good one. That's gonna keep me up at night. I call myself try to like digress from politics because it makes me anxious when I go to sleep, but it doesn't work like that.
I don't think this one will be decided on the 24th. This may go into, and I think it's gonna go down to a couple of days of counting, and I mean, it's gonna be a thin margin. It's already a thin margin. It's virtually tied up.
Virtually, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be a little. That's gonna be something. Listen, we'll be talking about it. Whether Derek want to talk, he'll be talking about it then, y'all. He'll let me talk about it. So anyway.
I mean, I just thought it was worth because both of them are bringing in money, tons of money.
Yeah.
I would love to get some. I mean, tons of money, 60 some odd $1 million. I want to say that's
Each.
between each. I want to say I think Warnock got like 60 million by itself, and Herschel Walker, who is not the chosen one by the party, is breaking in the dough.
Right. Well, he's got to win that nomination first, of course, to get to November.
True.
Yeah.
True. And he has a lot of people going up on the Republican side. But he's the front runner though. You got Gary Black, who gave up his seat. Gary Black is the current agriculture commissioner.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So he gave up his seat. And then you got Josh Clark, who I don't know who Josh Clark is. Kelvin King, Jonathan McComb, and Lathan Sattler. But Herschel Walker has 62%. Second place is Gary Black at 6%.
Oh God.
So
So he's like a shoe in for the nomination, right?
Jeez. Well, 21% is undecided, but even at 21%, 21 plus 6 is nowhere near 62. So
not even close.
Yeah, so that's gonna be interesting.
That's gonna be interesting.
And let's hurry up because we got the judge on here, and she's nonpartisan, so we can't be having these partisan conversations.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Just one last thing. So today, the Atlanta Press Club is hosting 14 debates.
Wow.
Ahead of early voting, which starts tomorrow, and then we'll get into that. So. In the state of Georgia, May 24th is the primary for partisan races. And then it's the actual election for nonpartisan races. In Gwinnett County, that's judges and school board. I believe those are the only two nonpartisan races, judges. Yeah, judges and school board, which will be decided on May 24th, unless there's a runoff, which probably District 4, the school board, will probably be in a runoff. It's like 8 or 9 or 10 of them. But Yeah, so the Atlanta Press Club, which is a pretty big deal here in Georgia, the Atlanta Press Club is holding 14 debates today. Uh, and they started that, well, they're holding it now. The Congressional 10 for the Republicans started at 9:30 a.m. Uh, the Congressional 14 for Republicans was at 11:15 a.m. this morning. Congressional District 6 Republicans started now at 1 p.m. All these are streaming live on their Facebook page. Congressional District 7 for Democrats stream at 2:45. The Governor Republicans stream at 7 p.m. And then, so not 14 today. They just had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 today. And then they're going to have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tomorrow. You got the Secretary of State, Democrat and Republicans. Republicans at 11 a.m., Democrats at 12:45 p.m. Insurance commissioners, Democrats and Republicans, 2:30 and 4 o'clock. And then on Tuesday, you have the state school superintendent as well as lieutenant governor. There's a lot of people in the lieutenant governor race. And then you're
Yeah.
gonna have a lot of Democrats in the lieutenant governor race. I haven't even seen the Republican side. They probably have just as many. And so that's a big race. And so the school superintendent Democrats is at 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday. Republicans is at 1:30 p.m. on Tuesday. Lieutenant Governor Democrats is 3 p.m. on Tuesday. Republicans 5 p.m. on Tuesday. U.S. Senate Republicans are at 7 p.m. On Tuesday. So these are going to be some big debates. Like I said, Atlanta Press Club, which is a pretty big deal here in Georgia. You get invited to one of those. I guess that mean you made it to the big time, huh?
Well, I have a press pass, so I can go to these things. So
Oh,
I
okay.
have
Well,
my name press pass.
so we gonna be there.
Now we gonna be working doing something else.
But yes. So if
Anyway,
you
let's
have,
get on with the
yeah.
show because I have to go because my sister-in-law lost her grandmother, so I have to go to my brother's
Oh,
house and the
Sorry.
family's all there, so I gotta go. But I said all that to say let's get started.
I'm sorry to hear that. How you gonna start us off on a sour note like that?
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
That's a part of life. Stuff happens, and it was unexpected, but she lived a nice full life. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah. And
he was.
speaking of part of life, hopefully this is never part of my life, but we do have a superior court judge that I love seeing her outside of a courtroom. Uh, let's hope to never see her inside of the courtroom. But if we were to see her inside of the courtroom, could you introduce yourself and tell us what that courtroom looked like?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I am Tracie Cason. I'm one of your Superior Court judges here in Gwinnett. We have 11 Superior Court judges. I preside over Division 2, and all that means is a case designation status. It doesn't mean we have districts within the county for your judges because all judges are countywide. It's just a case designation status. And so we have 11 of them. I'm Division 2. And the cases that Superior Court hears, we are the highest trial court of general jurisdiction in Georgia. So the courts above us are the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court for the state of Georgia. And because we're a court of general jurisdiction, we can try any kind of case. But what differentiates us is that what we have exclusive jurisdiction over. So generally, if you're going to be in my courtroom, it's because you're facing a felony criminal offense charge. That's about, I would say, 40% of what we do are criminal felony cases. You also might be in my courtroom if, excuse me, unfortunately, you're in a divorce or a custody battle or a legitimation battle. So Superior Court has exclusive jurisdiction over all family law cases. And that's about 40% of what we do. And then the other 20% is civil cases, and we can try any type of civil case there is: contract, car wreck, malpractice, but we have exclusive, again, jurisdiction over cases that relate to title to your property. So if you bought a house, but your title isn't clear and you want to clear that up, you would come to Superior Court. And then cases of equitable relief, so non-monetary relief, so temporary injunctions, restraining orders. So we stop people from doing stuff, or we can force them, such as in a mandamus action. Like we can force a government official or a government agency to do something, and you can only get that done in Superior Court. And then the happy thing that we do as it relates to family law are adoptions. Those are fantastic. That's the great part of our job.
And of course, you do weddings, right?
Right. Well, we can do weddings. Typically, most weddings are done in magistrate court, but yes, any judge can also conduct a wedding ceremony as well.
Okay.
So I want to pick it up with adoption, because I didn't know that was something that you guys handle. So when someone has a child that they want to adopt, what does that process look like? Because I know there are a lot of childless couples out there who want to adopt and just probably don't know the process. So, and I didn't know that either. I thought it was, I didn't know. I never thought about it like that. So what's the process look like? Yeah.
Sure. So as with most cases, you can represent yourself. It's always advisable to have an attorney to walk you through that process. But you can do an adoption pro se, which is representing yourself, which I've actually done an adoption that they filed the paperwork themselves. You file a petition. It's on a separate docket. So our adoptions are not part of the public record. And in fact, when we actually finalize the adoption, that is not done in open court. I generally do that in chambers, bring the family back in my office, and it's just a lot more less formal, and it's generally involving kids, so it makes them a little bit more comfortable as well. But you file a petition with the court. You have to have a background check, a criminal history check. You have to have a home study done as well. And then depending on the circumstances, if the child has come through an adoption agency, then those parental termination rights might have already been taken care of by waivers. If it's coming through defects, if it's unfortunately a child that has been taken away from their parents, and then those parents have had their rights terminated, that would have been done by defects in the juvenile court. If it's like a step parent adoption, and the rights of the biological father have not been terminated, then sometimes we have to do that part in open court. And generally what happens is they don't know where that biological father is. And so there's not a hearing on that. But every now and again, when they file that petition, they have to try to give notice. They have to, if there is a biological father that's still alive, they have to, give notice, obviously, because that's a fundamental right is your child and having rights to your child. And so there has been a case where we did have an adoption, a step parent adoption filed, and the father was still around and objected to it. And so in that case, you have to have a hearing, because those rights of, the whichever parent is, if it's a step parent and it's the stepfather that's adopting, then that child, has to be free to be adopted, essentially. And of course, the biological mother has to consent to that adoption as well, which if it's a step parent adoption is kind of pro forma. But it is a little bit complicated. It sounds complicated, but it's really not, because most of those adoptions are coming through adoption agencies or DFACs or their step parent adoptions. But it's such a beautiful thing. In each different it's just so beautiful in its own way, whether it's step parent adoption or, a couple. My very first adoption was a couple that had unfortunately tried for years and were not able to have a child on their own. And then they adopted an infant. So they were starting, a brand new family. And then we, the ones that the children have unfortunately been through defects, and then they find their new forever family. So they're all just so special in their own unique way.
Have you ever sat on a case where you had to deny an adoption?
Well, on that one where the father objected, we were like, we can't go forward on this adoption. We're going to have a hearing on these termination rights. And then ultimately it turned out that the father lived in another county. So that was going to have to be filed in the other county. And our court did not actually have that hearing, but we were like, we're not granting this adoption because the father has filed an objection to it.
So, question about that, because I'm a father, and and I was informed. I'm originally from Texas, and
Okay.
so I don't know Georgia's law, but I know in Texas, unmarried fathers have no birthright to the child. Is that the same here in Georgia?
That is correct. If you are unmarried and you have a child, you have to go through the courts to legitimate that child. Otherwise, you have no legal rights to that child. But if a
So,
child is born of marriage, they automatically have those rights. But if it's outside of marriage, and that's just a holdover from years, hundreds
yeah,
of years ago or a couple of hundred years ago, where back in the day, obviously marriage was encouraged. I think marriage, obviously, I think the government still encourages that, but that's a holdover from way back. That if you have a child outside of wedlock, obviously it's going to be the right of the mother because she actually gives birth to that child, but the father has to file those documents to legitimate that child and prove by DNA that he is
right.
actually the father of that child.
Wow.
So could an adoption take place without, if they're unmarried, without that father's input?
I could think of if for some reason the mother didn't know who the father was, um, and they give notice and they check what's called the putative registry. Like if you have fathered a child, you would register. So I'm sure there probably have been times where um, the mother didn't tell the father that
Right.
she was pregnant, never informed the father, and then lost touch of where that individual was. And so notice wasn't able to be given. Then I'm quite sure there have been adoptions where those situations have happened, where as long as she has followed everything, they followed everything they're supposed to do as far as the new parent that's adopting, excuse me, they followed everything, they've done the searches, they've given the notice, but they unfortunately no longer know where the biological father is, so he doesn't get noticed. And there can be situations where an adoption goes through because it appears that everything has been done correct
Right.
legally.
Right. And there's no
Wow.
recourse from the father once he find out, right?
No,
Because
there is. You
oh,
can always file something later saying, hey, I didn't get notice. This is my biological child. You would have to prove that, of course, through the DNA process and things like that.
no, okay,
But
wow.
Wow.
paternity doesn't necessarily mean legitimation either.
You said it doesn't?
No, there's two different things. Paternity doesn't
Oh,
necessarily mean legitimation. So, um,
oh wow.
legitimation means that you're going to have actual legal rights to the child, visitation and or custody. Paternity means that you're just the biological father of that child. So they're two different things legally.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so signing a birth certificate at birth does not mean legitimation. It
That is
just means,
correct. That's
wow.
correct. You have to go through the court process.
Yeah,
So what if
wow.
you get, because now you got me thinking, what if you get married after the child is born? Is that
That
child
legitimates the child.
okay? Whoo, thank
Yeah.
God. I'm about to say, I got a illegitimate over here.
Right. So
You so foolish. So
you're all
Tracy, how
good.
long how
You're
long
all
have you
good.
been
Okay.
in the legal system? How long have you been doing this?
So I've been on the bench a little over 3 years. I was just elected in 2018 when Judge Turner decided to retire, and I ran for her open seat. And so, of course, that election was in May 2018 with the term starting January of 2019. And so I've been on the bench since 2019. Prior to my running for judge, I was a prosecutor in Gwinnett for 18 years. And then I was a prosecutor in Dublin, Georgia for 3 years prior to moving to Gwinnett County. So I've been in the legal field, if I'm doing my math correct, about 25 years now. I think
Yeah.
this will be my 25th year.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's a long time. I want to talk about something that you were a part of called Operation Spring Cleaning. I gotta tell a quick story. So when I first moved back to Georgia, my daughter went out for a job interview, and it was with a couple who had a CPA firm and a real estate firm, and so she was excited because she had just gotten here, and both of those were pretty good, and so I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. But then they invited her to come to a restaurant, so she goes to the restaurant, Bahama Breeze. She has lunch, but when she gets there, it's nothing but guys, just a table full of guys. So when she came back to tell me that, I was like, you went to a lunch with nothing but men? She's like, yeah, and they were just kind of talking all around me. I'm like, that didn't sound good. And so I said to her, tell them you're not taking that job. I don't care how much
Mhm.
money they're paying. You tell them you're not taking that job. Thank you very much. Well, she did that. Don't you know they called her back and said, listen, we're having a loft party. We want you to come. It's going to be downtown Atlanta, $3 million loft. The last people that came, the girl got married to some guy from England. I said, see, that's why I told you not to. That's why I told you to turn that job down. And it was crazy
Mhm.
because at that time, when we got here, people were telling us, be very careful, tell your daughter, be very careful because human trafficking is big down here. And so I want to talk about Operation Spring Cleaning and what was your part in it, and what is it? What was it?
Sure, sure. Operation Spring Cleaning was a collaborative effort between the GBI, the Gwinnett DA's office, Gwinnett Police Department, Sheriff's Department, and about probably 15 other law enforcement agencies that came in to assist as well. And it was a 4-day undercover operation targeting individuals that were trying to have sex with underage children. And the goal was, most of the time, prosecution offices, law enforcement, and the courts are reactive. We just deal with the cases that law enforcement makes. The prosecutor looks at the cases that come to them, and then the courts, we have to deal with whatever cases the prosecution decides to file. This was an opportunity to actually prevent victimization. And so uh, all of these agencies, it took about 6 months to plan, and they had it was a 4-night operation. And the district attorney's part, I was supervising our SVU unit, our special victims unit, because that was the primary focus of my career as a prosecutor, was prosecuting child molestation, child abuse, sexual assault cases. So we had an assistant DA in the undercover house every night to make sure that the cases that were being made were legally sound. And over that 4-day period, uh, 24 individuals were arrested.
Wow.
Individuals that thought they were traveling to this home in Swanee, Georgia. We're not talking about downtown Atlanta. We're talking outside the perimeter, Swanee, Georgia, one of the best cities to live, which it still is. But arrested 24 individuals that thought they were going to have sex with a minor. And we
Wow.
planned it so that each night when those cases came in, we had a prosecutor there. So they were seeing the interviews, they were seeing those undercover chats, because it was all, generated online, which, the internet is a great thing, but it also can be such a bad thing. But we would draw those indictments, and we had a grand jury we had grand jury every Wednesday in Gwinnett, every Wednesday or Thursday, depending on the week. And that operation ended wee hours of the morning, Monday morning. And by Wednesday afternoon, we had presented all of those cases to the grand jury, and every one of those individuals were indicted. And to see that collaboration, and to know that, but for that undercover operation, 24 young children might have been victimized, was very satisfying,
Wow.
because it was, it was
You
where
know,
we could actually prevent that from happening.
so let me ask you this, because that, oh God, that just gives me chills. Um, so those they got indicted. How much time would they do? Because it's not a life sentence, right? Because then they can get back out and do it all over again. So how much time could someone get for something like that? Because they did not
So,
actually do the offense, but they got caught before it happened.
right, depending on how they're charged, they could be charged with different ways, like obscene internet contact with a child, um, human trafficking for sexual servitude. So there's a bunch of different kinds of charges. And I think the legislature just actually increased offenses for actual human trafficking. But these, of course, would have been criminal attempt to commit, human trafficking because obviously they didn't actually do it, or obscene contact with a child. So it ranges. If you actually go up to probably the maximum, you're looking at a maximum of 25 years. But you could also be a minimum of about 5, depending on which way the actual charge was drawn and what they actually did or said, or if they showed up versus being arrested before they even got to the house. Uh,
Oh,
so
so they got arrested before they got to the house? What would cause that?
we had one that was arrested before they got to the house, but um, they had set up things in place that it was clear that individual was coming to the house. Everyone else was arrested when they actually
They
showed
got
up at the house with certain things that had been requested by the undercover officer. So there was no question, they couldn't just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I got lost and was stopping to ask for directions." No,
right.
no,
Yeah, no.
no. Otherwise, why do you have X, Y, and Z
Yeah,
that the undercover officer asked you to bring, those
yeah,
specific items in your car?
right. Yeah.
Once
It's
they
like
once
that
they're
TV
released
show.
from
I was saying it's like that TV show, How to Catch a Predator.
That's exactly right. It was a real live version of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
wow. Once they are released back to general population into the communities, are they registered as a sex offender at that point?
they are. They are.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's for life, right? Or that's
It depends, as you can imagine. It depends on what they were sentenced to, how long they were sentenced, under what statute they were sentenced, and then there's different time periods you can actually petition to come off the sex offender registry, and there's a whole kind of list of requirements to be able to do that. So, as you'll hear from most lawyers to most questions, it depends.
it depends.
It depends.
It depends. I do have a question about just I guess the legal system as a whole. Uh, when so the I guess the goal of the legal system is to uh, prevent people from reoccurring crimes. They do a crime, pay the time. So my question is, how do we provide opportunities for people to I guess try to, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but like where it's not a cycle where they're going in and out, where they can get a job. Because once you get a felony, it's hard to get a job. Obviously, if you're registered, it's hard to get a job.
Right.
And so, and I'm speaking from not my experience, but I have a family member
Sure.
where, I mean, he's currently in jail now because and it's a cycle. And I
Okay.
feel sorry for him because, well, he can't get a job,
Right.
and for him, he feel like that's
Like,
home.
what's the use, right? Yeah.
Right.
He's
Two
like,
meals a day, three
right.
meals a day, you got a roof over your head. So what is it in the system that makes it so, or what can be done to make it so we can try to what's the word I'm looking for? Where you rehabilitate. There we go.
Rehabilitate.
Rehabilitate these
Yeah.
people.
So you're absolutely right. I mean, we've got to figure out, the court system is a balance of balancing the rights of the accused, the rights of the victim, and the safety of the community. That's kind of what the whole process is about. But we can't send everybody to prison, and everybody doesn't need to go to prison. There's some people that make mistakes that, yes, it's a mistake that where they broke the law, but it's just a stupid mistake. They just didn't have the skills maybe to make the right decision, or they were in a bad place in their life that they couldn't make the right decision. I mean, you can always make the right decision, but sometimes circumstances may, force some people to feel like they don't have an option as to,
Right.
making the right decision. And so that's why actually when I was in the DA's office, Danny Porter tasked me with creating the first felony pretrial diversion and intervention program in Gwinnett County. That has since been expanded under the new DA, but I helped start that before I was elected judge. And it was for individuals that didn't have criminal histories. They had low level, nonviolent crimes where, again, they had just made, a bad decision, but they weren't bad people. And so that actually kept those cases from even coming in front of a judge. They would enter into a program. They would take some classes. If it was a theft by shoplifting, we would do theft awareness courses. We would do some community service. Of course, they'd have to pay a fine, and that would be, that would vary based on what their situation was. And as long as they completed all of that, then the case was dismissed and they were eligible for it to even be expunged off their record. So they didn't have anything to prevent them, which was an excellent program. We also have what's called first offender. So if your case does get to court, but for some reason you didn't qualify for the pretrial diversion program, or the DA didn't offer it to you, or there is a fee associated with it, so maybe you couldn't afford the fee for that pretrial diversion program, there is a legal statute called first offender program. So it's almost the same thing. If you don't have a prior felony conviction, then you can be eligible for first offender. And it works much the same way, except now it's through the court system. And so as long as you successfully complete all the terms and conditions of your sentence, as long as you don't have any violations, then at the end of your sentence, we actually withhold that adjudication of guilt when they enter a plea. So they're under sentence, but we don't have an actual adjudication of guilt. So while they're even serving that first offender sentence, they could say they've never been convicted of a felony. So they could be under a first offender sentence.
Wow.
You go to apply for a job or for school. They ask that question, have you ever been convicted of a felony? You can say no, even though you're under sentence, because you haven't been adjudicated guilty. And then once you complete that sentence, as long as you successfully completed it, then your case is discharged. You don't have a conviction, and you're potentially eligible for expungement. So we even have a program in the court system to be able to give folks that opportunity to, hey, let's get you some courses. You learned your lesson from making a stupid mistake, but it's not going to hold you back from being able to move forward and get past that dumb thing that you did.
When is an offender made aware of these type of programs? Is it the day they get arrested, the day they go before for the hearing? When do they know about these programs?
So anyone that's arrested and can't afford an attorney, they are appointed an attorney, and it's at if they actually have a first appearance hearing, so they don't bond out immediately, they'll be appointed a lawyer if they can't hire one. And that attorney will let them know of the different programs. If they don't have if they bond right out and don't get an attorney or they don't hire an attorney, once they show up for arraignment, so the DA's office has actually charged that case. Because remember, with Superior Court, we're just dealing with the DA's office. State court would deal with the solicitor's office, and they have a different set of programs. Even though they're just dealing with misdemeanors, they still have diversion programs in state court, because if you can even avoid a misdemeanor conviction, that's a good thing.
Right.
So we're just dealing with the DA's office. So if someone comes to me at arraignment and they don't have an attorney, I always inquire, do you plan to hire your own attorney, which everyone has a right to do, or do you want to see if you qualify for appointed counsel? And I get, I'm actually surprised by the number of people that want to try to hire their own. But then, and which I give them time to do it. We can't let it be a delay tactic, but I'm going to give them some time because they need to be comfortable with who's representing them. But obviously, if they can't afford one, then, I have to ask them some financial questions because we have some cutoffs. And at arraignment, I'll appoint an attorney to represent them. And that attorney will help them navigate the court system, make them aware, and they'll ask the DA's office, hey, can we plead this into pretrial diversion because, they didn't have an attorney before you indicted it. So can we go into that program now? Or, because they can go into pretrial diversion even after indictment. They don't have to go through and actually do the first offender. But then if they don't do that plea into pretrial diversion, then the attorney will ask, if they're eligible, they can ask the court, hey, Your Honor, we would like to enter this under first offender. And it's in the court's discretion. We don't have to grant first offender. I can't think of maybe one case that I didn't grant first offender on. It was because it was a sex case. And not many sex cases are eligible for first offender, but this one, I just was like, I'm sorry, for the protection of the community, we need that record.
Right.
But generally, I think that's the only time I've ever denied first offender, because you want to give somebody a chance. And with first offender, there's a big hammer. So it's a big incentive for somebody to do what they're supposed to do, because if they don't complete first offender and they come back before the court and get that sentence revoked, they could be sentenced to the maximum of whatever offense they entered a plea to, even if that was more than what they were sentenced to originally. So it's I think sometimes people need that hanging over their head to give them the tools to, hey, I'm going to listen in these classes. I'm going to take what they're saying to heart, because I don't want to come back here and face more time than what I got.
Is there a particular reason in Gwinnett County doesn't have a public defender's office? Is that?
So Gwinnett County opted out of the public defender system. Each county or each judicial circuit had the ability to do that. And the system that Gwinnett had in place, which is an appointed list. So private attorneys apply to be on our appointed list. And of course, this happened well before my time, that they created the appointed list and opted out of the public defender system. But you get, not that a public defender's office doesn't have high quality attorneys in it, but if you think about it, I think the county looks at it that they can provide higher quality attorneys, honestly, at a lower price, because the county doesn't have to pay overhead. Like with the DA's office, you've got a whole large,
yeah,
exactly, where you're paying salaries, benefits, supplies, all of that. Whereas with the appointed system, if you were to go hire that attorney that's on the appointed system, most of them would be billing at over $300 an hour, and you're getting that attorney for free.
Oh, wow.
But there's pros and cons to a public defender office, because when you have a public defender's office, they get used to the judge they're in front of, they get used to the prosecutors they're working with, and it gives them a little bit more leverage when talking with their clients. Hey, I know this prosecutor, I know this is kind of the way they do things, and they can give their clients better advice. But on the flip side of that, we've had some of the attorneys on our appointed list since I've been here, and I moved here in October of 2000. So they know all the prosecutors too.
Right.
They know the judges too, and so they're able to advise their clients, hey, yeah, we can ask that prosecutor, but they're not going to come off that recommendation because I've had 100 cases with them. So I think it boils down to, honestly, a financial decision that Gwinnett County made years ago. And because of the level of attorneys that we have on our appointed list, our indigent defendants get a huge benefit.
So a public defender is funded, I guess, through the county. That's the difference, I guess. Because I really don't know the difference. I just know we don't have.
It's really just a different structure, because our appointed lawyers are paid through the county as well.
Okay.
It's just they can also take private cases.
Oh, and the public defender can.
That's correct. So much like an assistant DA that works for the DA's office can't go out and take private cases, an individual that works for a public defender's office can't go out and take private cases.
Oh, okay.
And I think, some of the misperceptions with public defenders is that they aren't as high quality, and that's simply not the case. Although typically a lot of attorneys will start out in a public defender's office. So you do have some that maybe their skill level is fantastic, but they may not have the years of experience. Yeah. But like some of our attorneys that have been on the appointed list, that have had 20, 30 years experience, but they're just taking appointed cases.
Is there a certain requirement to be on that list, appointed list?
You have to apply, and we have an indigent defense committee, and they will look at, there's questions about how many jury trials you've had, what kind, if you deal with felonies or misdemeanors. And we have different lists in Gwinnett. So we have the A list, B list, C list, D list, and then appointed cases just for appeals. And so obviously that A list would just be individuals that can handle the most serious felonies that there are. And then the B list would still handle felonies, but not quite as serious. And then our C, and I think our C list will still handle some minor felonies like theft by shoplifting. And then our D list is for state court.
Okay.
And so they look at the different experience levels of the individuals applying.
I can tell you the one thing I love about this show is when we get people on here and they really share what they know. I feel like I learn so much every time. Like we bring on new guests, right? And we may be struck like, okay, what can we ask them? What can we ask them? And then we just the questions just come off, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know this. So thank you so much for just sharing. This platform is for us to empower our community to learn about the law, to learn about their rights, to learn about the people that represent them. So thank you. Thank all of you. Everybody has been on this show. Thank you all for coming on and sharing, why you do what you do. And so with that being said, why are you running again?
Right. Well, I have always been committed and just passionate about protecting the community in which I live. It started when I was in Dublin, Georgia. I grew up in Dublin and went back and worked at the DA's office right out of law school there. And it's funny, for some reason, when I was 12, I had an elementary school teacher that did a mock trial, and I fell in love with the law. And I was just a witness because I was a little fifth grader, I didn't get to be a lawyer, but I loved it. And even at that point in time, I somehow was like, I'm going to be a prosecutor and I'm going to protect people, and loved it. Did it for 21 years. But I wanted to expand the group of people that I could protect. And even though as a prosecutor, not only did I protect victims, I also protected defendants, because there were cases that, prosecutors also look at to determine if an individual's rights have been violated or if there's enough evidence to go forward. So as a prosecutor, I was able to protect defendants in that realm. But I wanted to expand the number of individuals that I could protect. So not just victims, not just defendants, but people that are in child custody issues, people that are in legitimation cases, or people that are having civil disputes, to be able to make sure that we were protecting and that I could protect and make sure our community felt safe and, trusted our system. When I started, because I'd always done criminal, I'd always done prosecution. I had never done civil or domestic. So I had to get up to speed really quickly, because I got transferred a lot of civil and domestic cases. We transferred out the criminal caseload from that judge that I took her spot, just so we would have no appearance of impropriety, because I was a deputy chief with the DA's office and I did handle grand juries. So wanted to make sure there just wasn't any appearance of impropriety. So we transferred any case that had been pending while I was in the DA's office. Of course, when I started getting that criminal caseload, what actually started the month before I took office, it built up quickly. But that first year, I spent a lot of time doing domestic cases and cases that have been transferred to me from the other judges. And you can imagine those were not the nice little pretty cases that were going to settle quickly. They were the ugly, contentious divorce cases or custody cases. And I really, I felt, I knew I was where I was supposed to be when I was getting satisfaction from handling those cases and helping those individuals learn what their new normal was, to get a roadmap for maybe now, unfortunately, mom and dad aren't together, but let's create a plan to make sure that these kids can thrive and that they cannot be completely devastated by, the decision that unfortunately their parents can't live together anymore. And it was, I just loved it. And, and I didn't know if I would be good at it because I hadn't had any civil or domestic experience, but A few months in, I had a case where an individual was seeking a change of custody, and the child was 15. And so a young man, and when they're that age, they can file what's called an election, where they choose which parent they want to live with. And the court will give preference to that, but the court doesn't have to follow it, because ultimately what I'm charged with is to figure out what's in that child's best interest. That's my standard. And so, a 15-year-old, he's a young man. He came into court and testified. There are ways that we don't have to have children come in, when they're younger. But this was a young man. He knew what was going on. He came in and testified. I heard from his mom and his dad. And ultimately, I decided that he needed to stay with his mom for primary custody, but he needed more time with his dad. And so we restructured the parenting plan so that he had more time with his father. Brought him in, explained what I was doing, why I was keeping him with his mom. And I asked if anybody had any questions. And his dad said, Judge, I didn't get what I came here to get, but I understand your ruling and I respect it. And I'm like, that's what I'm here to do. I am here to listen to people, to give them a voice. And it may not be that I rule in their favor, but they're heard, they're respected, and I take that information so that I can make the best decision that I can make. And then I explain it to them so they don't leave going, well, I don't understand. Why did she do what she did? Because then they don't respect it. They have to accept it, but they don't understand it or respect it. And so that's why I'm running again, because I love doing that and giving that to individuals and letting them know that you're always going to be heard in my courtroom. And I tell parents, my job is not to make y'all happy. My job is to make the decision that's in the best interest of this child. If I can make the parents happy, that's great, but they're always going to be heard. I may not always do what they want me to do, but they're always going to be heard. And I want to just continue to do that. I just most days, love coming to work. Obviously, any job, there are days it's like, oh no. But I love what I do. I love my staff. I kept the staff of the judge that I took her place. So there was absolutely no transition in how the office was run. They knew what to do. They knew how to schedule the cases. So I just had to learn how to do my job, because they kept everything running, and they're fantastic. And they love serving this county too, because we're all community servants.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people don't know, is that judges are community servants. We're members of our community. We're people that want this community to thrive as we have been, and we're community servants.
And I see not only are you a bulldog fan, but you a dog lover. You got like 4 dogs.
We have 4 dogs. So yes, we're blessed with fur kids. And their names Dooley, Mutson, Irk. And so those are all after Georgia folks. And then my husband named our chocolate lab after his grandmother, Emma May.
No.
Emma May. That's nice. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today. How can people reach out to you if they want to support your campaign and your reelection?
Absolutely. So our website is www.traciecason.com. And my email, I think we've got one email on there. There's another one as well, which is tracie@traciecason.com. And then our phone number is 404-890-0460. Of course, as you mentioned earlier, judges are nonpartisan. So we don't make it to that November ballot. So May is our general election. And as y'all already mentioned, early voting starts tomorrow, goes through the 20th. But you have to scroll to the bottom of the ballot for both your judges and your school board. They put us nonpartisan folks all the way at the bottom. So scroll all the way to the bottom to get to those races if you want to vote in them. And, those are races, both the judges and, we've got state court, superior court, judges on the ballot in that school board, these are individuals that are going to be affecting people's day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
Not that the other races don't, but these are local
All right.
races that are affecting people's day-to-day lives.
Yes. Yes. Well, to leave on a happier note, did you follow the draft? UGA had a record last night or this week.
Yes, absolutely. 5 number one, first round draft picks, the most, and I think 15 overall.
15
So
total. Yeah.
record.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I know you guys were just excited. And when did you guys get married? 14 years. Me and my wife are teenagers as well. We celebrate our 14 year this year.
So actually, my husband and I, we both married later in life. It was a first marriage for both of us.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So we are actually about to celebrate our 15th anniversary on Thursday.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we got married in 08. So you guys was 07.
That's right.
Yeah, so we
right.
got married in 08. So we
Yep.
celebrate our 14th year this year in July. So July 14th.
Yay, happy anniversary. Well, I sometimes joke that my husband married me for my Georgia tickets because my tickets were better than his.
Oh, so you have season tickets, huh?
Oh yeah. I'm a diehard dog. My daddy was a dog, and my sister and family. So
who do you root for when Georgia and Baylor go against each other? If they go against each
the
other?
dogs.
Come on now, come on now.
I gotta support my undergrad. So, and Georgia and Baylor played in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
And so I'm originally from Houston, so I was in a dilemma when it was the Astros and the Braves.
Oh yeah.
The Bulldogs and the Bears. So,
gosh, Houston is one of the hottest places on earth.
It's pretty hot.
It is hot.
Yeah. So
she said on earth. Like I'm never going to Houston then.
It's funny because I have family. I have family that lives in Phoenix, and they swear they hate Houston. I'm like, you live in the desert. They like, oh man, the humidity is different. They say Houston is.
Well, don't they have those underground tunnels downtown? Like
they do
buildings, so you don't have to get out in the heat. That's how hot it is.
Yeah. Audrey, they have a whole city underground.
Yeah.
Under
really?
like, yeah, you can go down certain buildings and they have restaurants and shopping, the courthouse. I mean, and it's all connected.
Yeah.
And so actually I was surprised when I came to Georgia, how they transport the inmates from the jail to the court. They actually drive them. Well, no, downtown in Houston, it's all that's under tunnels.
Yeah.
Because you got the courthouse, then you got the jails, and then they all have tunnels that connect to the courthouse.
Right.
And so, luckily you can't end up in the wrong tunnel.
That's good.
That's always a plus.
Yeah.
But because the courthouse does have tunnels that's connected to the rest of the downtown tunnels for food and fun and games.
Right.
But they also have their secret tunnels for inmates and all that.
Yeah.
And so and then for the city to be under sea level, that's the interesting.
Yeah, well that was a bad situation a few years ago with that.
Well, that was Hurricane Harvey, but so she chooses the dogs over her law school.
Absolutely, I'm a dog.
Well, that's amazing. Well, congrats to you and the dogs for the championship last year, and then as she said, this is, there is no primary, there is no November. This is her election, May 24th, and she's running for re-election in this race, and is go out to vote. And she said they're at the bottom of the ballot.
That's right. Scroll down.
Finish your ballot.
That's right. And let me just, from what I've heard, when you pull up your sample ballot, and whatever ticket you pull, it doesn't have on your sample ballot the nonpartisan. You have to pull a separate, just when you go on your my voter page to pull your sample, that we're on a separate ballot, just on the preview ballot. So, but when you get to the polls, whatever ballot you pull, your nonpartisans will be at the bottom.
Right.
So it's so
whether you pull a Democrat or a Republican, she will be on your ballot.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct.
And so,
All right.
well, all right. Well, we have to let Miss
Thank
Argy
you.
get out of here. She had a family situation. We'll be praying for you and your
Yes.
Yeah,
family.
absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you again, Tracie, for being our guest. Thank you, Derek, for always being my great co-host. Listen, we'll be back again next Sunday, same bat time, same bat plays with another great guest. So be sure to tune in. If you missed any episode of this show, go to popcornandpolitics.com. You can listen to all our past guests there and listen to what they had to say. The election, early voting starting tomorrow. So if you have not heard some of the interviews, go to popcornandpolitics.com. Listen to all the interviews again. Pick the candidate you want to support and support that candidate. Thank you again. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. It's going to be beautiful. It's like 80 degrees. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll be back again next week. Until next time, my friends, until next time, make it a great day. Bye, y'all.
You've been listening to Popcorn in Politics. What's the real deal? Hosted by Audrey Bell Kearney and Derek J. Wilson. Be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your family and friends. To support the show, visit us on the web at www.popcornandpolitics.com. Connect with us on Facebook at Progressive Popcorn and on Instagram at Popcorn Politics Podcast.